Lighthouse Automotive. We've been in business for 34 years. We have 2 locations, a 7-bay shop and a 4-bay shop. We have 15 employees total. And we started literally from scratch.
After an employee has been with us for a couple of years, we send them on vacation.
You need to be able to give people responsibility. That's how you end up with work-life balance. I can be away from the shop right now. I know how quickly I could go away for a month. And things are handled. The concept of, I'll do it when I retire is the worst thing you could ever say to yourself.
One thing I like to keep telling myself is, you work to live, you don't live to work.
Live in the moment, because that's all that you're guaranteed is what you got right now. And you can do all the planning, but you're not guaranteed anything except what you got right now. You can't take anything back. Once that time's gone, gone.
Don't wait. Just don't wait. Don't wait to do the thing that you want to do. Don't wait. That's the biggest thing I've ever learned in life.
Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. I'm glad to have the guest that we have with us today, and I'll be talking about a topic that I'm guessing has impacted every single one of you at some point, and it possibly is impacting many of you right now. That's work-life balance, and trying to make sure that our shop is still growing, running smoothly, and also making sure that you're tending to things in home life as well as your mental space. We're going to be chatting about those things with David, Paul, and Kevin. So we're going to go round robin real quick to introduce. If you're listening to this live inside the Garage Facebook group, that's great. If not, then you're going to be getting this podcast on Tuesdays, and you'll be able to get your podcasts wherever you get them, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever. Making sure that you're clicking on that notification bell, make sure that you're following so that when we drop other episodes, you're paying attention. As we do this panel exercise once a month, and now we're also doing impact and origin impact stories as one-on-one conversations with shop owners. Podcasts are happening more than just once a month, but the panel is still once a month, and the next one is scheduled for July 16th. Work-life balance. Again, we've got David from North Carolina. We've got Paul from Ohio. We've got Kevin from Illinois. Let's chat about that. David, how about you give us a start? Tell us a little bit about your shop and your setup so that we can get a point of view from when we're hearing your thoughts.
Lighthouse Automotive. We're on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is a unique place. We actually are on an island. We've been in business for 34 years. We have 2 locations, a 7-bay shop and a 4-bay shop. We have 15 employees total, and we started from scratch, literally from scratch.
We'll have to hear more about that soon. Paul, tell us about your journey and what you got.
Clintonville Auto Repair. Business has been around since the early 60s. I started working here in 2002, bought the place in 2012. I have 8 total employees, including myself. Total buildings about 10,000 square feet with 6,000 square feet for production. Population around us around 1 million. The neighborhood right around me is probably around 40,000, but there's a lot to draw from around here.
How about you, Kevin?
Fox River Tire and Auto in St. Charles, Illinois. We are about 10,000 square feet. I've got 8 employees at Fox River Tire. Our surrounding area is probably around 150,000. We're one of the westernmost suburbs of Chicago. And I have another shop very close to this one, Precision Motorworks, that has 3 employees plus myself working.
Okay. So you're working at 2 shops right now.
I'm working at Precision. Fox River Tire is running itself right now. I have a great manager that is running it.
Okay, good. Because if you have to be in 2 locations, and maybe David, you can speak to this as well. 2 locations kind of splits you again, right? You're running 2 different sets of operations. And that plays into today's topic of work-life balance. I want to hear, let's start by talking about any stories where you realize you were out of balance. Have any of you experienced that out of balance moment at all? All right. You're all nodding your head in agreement. Sure. Who wants to go first, sharing a moment, and how long ago? It was yesterday, right?
Well, the first thing I noticed early on opening the shop is meeting my customers. So many of them would go, oh, I can't wait till I retire, so I can do this and go there. We had all these plans, and very few of them ever made it to that point. Something happened either health-wise, financially wise. And I decided then that we were going to do whatever we wanted to do or could do now. Now, is my life balance in check? No, I'll work on it hard. It's always changing.
Okay.
I would say very similar to that. I spent 10 years working for Firestone corporate before I bought Foxborough Retire, and there was no work-life balance. It was all work. I had to be there when I had to be there, and if somebody didn't show up, I had to be there. It was a 7-day operation. I had a daughter in high school and playing sports and missed a lot of that. My wife likes to say that for those 10 years, she attended everything by herself. Weddings, graduations, funerals, all the games. That's something you don't ever get back, that time. So when I bought Foxborough Retire, I, like David, was very intentional about, I have another daughter and I'm not going to miss those things for her.
Okay. So that's the case for having a second child.
The
The do-over.
I've got it similar as everybody else. When I purchased a business in 2012, John and I purchased it from his dad had started it. So 1960s to 2012 is a lot of time and a lot of things of how we do it. I took on the Herculean task of modernizing a lot of things with computers and processes to keep what we had, but put my own vision for the future. A lot of hours at the shop doing stuff. Or if I wasn't at the shop, I was on my laptop at home, clickety-clicking on things. At the time, my wife at the time, she had started recently a real estate career. So, of course, for her, it was the same thing. She was doing everything necessary. So we both got wrapped up in work and not enough of life. And eventually that's what caused us to split. To this day, we're still very good friends. We each have garage door openers to each other's house. We talk regularly. We go out to meal. But that was a sacrifice. That marriage was a sacrifice because so much time was put in by both of us to a career and to grow something. So you learn very quickly that when something happens, okay, I can't let this happen anymore. Now, for me, also similar to David mentioned, my father passed away. He retired, and my mom, they spent their whole life with, I'm going to do that when I retire. My dad passed away, had a heart attack. He was 62 years old. He had just retired. And actually, the day after he passed away, his first Social Security check hit the mailbox. My mom passed away 3 years later at the age of 65. They never did anything because they said, I'm going to do that when I retire. I'm going to do that when I retire. And I was in my 30s when that happened. I'm 54 now. So that also puts a really strong bee in your bonnet, if you will, to not have that happen to you. I'm not waiting. I'm not going to make stupid mistakes and make stupid decisions to be able to do things, but I'm not waiting.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to set your business up in such a way that allows you to do that.
You need to be intentional about the guardrails that you're putting up to make sure that you're staying in that lane you need to be in. Interesting. The number of people much younger than us who have heard these stories, I want to do it when I retire, and they watch them not do it. There has been a little bit of a pendulum shift of work to experience over getting stuff, right? The younger kids are trying to do more of these things before they get married. They're waiting a bit longer in life to get the family started. I imagine that actually has impacted your employees as well. I was talking to a shop earlier today, and they are closing their doors because 2 of their lead mechanics are in the process of retiring and they can't find any replacements. They're just throwing in the towel. And I feel bad for them. I empathize with them, but I also can relate when I hear the stories about how the younger generation is so focused on the life side that they're also out of balance. What are your thoughts? Balance is the key word, right? You got to have a balance between the two. I work so that I can have time with my family, and it needs to go both ways. Anyone have any thoughts on managing employees when it comes to work-life balance? Do you actually get involved?
So at Foxborough Retire, we have employees ranging from their early 20s up to 65. The younger generation wants to have a lot of experience. They come to work to afford that experience. When they have enough, work isn't as important. After an employee has been with us for a couple of years, we send them on vacation. We've had an employee go to Jamaica. We've had an employee go to Clearwater, Florida. We send them and their significant other. We have an employee we're working on a trip to Hawaii for because we definitely feel the importance of that work-life balance. Sometimes you get a guy who's more focused on work, and found that when you take a vested interest in more than just what they do for you, there's a lot of appreciation for that.
Definitely.
I'm curious about that because the cost to go to Hawaii is different from the cost to go to Clearwater. Tell me about how that works. Is it a scenario where after so many hours they put in, you put in a dollar towards their vacation fund and then they can go for 4 years on a better trip? Or
No, the trip that we plan for them is typically a weekend. It's a leave Thursday after work, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The guy who's going to Hawaii, he is supplementing part of it. It was his honeymoon trip that they didn't get to take because they couldn't afford to get there. So we're picking up the affording to get there, and we'll pick up maybe a night or two at a hotel, a few dinners. The Clearwater, we sent them down there. We paid for 3 nights in a Airbnb, paid for their food, and it's very much appreciated. Let me tell you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive setup. I was also thinking about something else that each one of you mentioned. Actually, I don't know that Kevin, you mentioned it from before Fox River. So my question is, and Paul, when you took on Clintonville shop, you were working crazy to get it to a point. So here's my question. Is work-life balance something that you start on day one? Or is it something that you build your shop to a point where you have it and you have it defined before you start building? So you know what the goal is. That way you can't just always kick it down the road, but you know that your shop needs to be a certain size before you can actually get there, and you work your tail off a little unbalanced until you get to that point. Which is it?
It's a horrible answer, but it's both. Because you say, here's how we're doing X. Like, example for me, I use the reference. My office man, they were doing time card by hand, adding all the numbers up on the side. And then they do on the other side. I got a little app for them to add it up. Either on both things on the computer, they just type it in and add. Everything was on ledgers, those old accounting number column ledgers. So I'm like, I'm going to be creating an Excel spreadsheet for this and for this. What I bringing things into modernizing it really was. So many things were so at the asswords. It worked, but it wasn't going to work. The business was running good, and still is, but we have progressed in a way that we wouldn't have been able to without making those changes. In our industry, there's a lot of people that aren't super computer savvy when you get into some of the software programs for Office, Microsoft Office programs and what have you. But our building, I was about the only person that really knew how to create anything and formulas and all that. So it forced me into having spent a lot of time doing it. And so I had the goals that I wanted to try. Okay, we want to get here, but as you're going through, the reason I say it's bold is you get off on an offshoot this way, an offshoot that way. You start making a lot of changes. It's hard to stay on task because you say, if I'm going to do this, maybe I need to do this over here. And then from that, I'm going to do this and then over there. Now you've got so many extra tasks on your dry erase board. What am I going to do? And then you just look at it, you're like, it's my shop. I just got to do it. And you just put your head down and you keep pushing and you keep pushing.
But is there any of those things that could be delegated in hindsight? Could have you actually said, okay, and then
absolutely,
you're going to be my Excel spreadsheet expert, you're going to be my Word document expert, you're going to be my shopware software or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I only knew how to run a shop by watching the guy that was my boss for 10 years. That was my knowledge base. Needed delegate what? But you do learn, okay, I need to have this person responsible for this. I need that off my plate. You need to be able to give people responsibilities. That's how you end up with work-life balance. I can be away from the shop right now. I know comfortably I could go away for a month. And
that's great.
They wouldn't call me and I wouldn't call them. Things are handled. Everybody knows what they are and are not allowed to do. A service manager is allowed to hire and fire. They can pay for anything up to $5,000. So if we had a lip, catastrophic piece of equipment fail, they get a new one. You got someone else that does payroll. You just got to let people, a lot of ego involved for a lot of shop owners. They struggle letting go of responsibilities. Some call it power. If you want to separate yourself from the business and do things, you have to let people do things.
And possibly do it wrong.
Yeah.
Until they learn.
David having the 2 shops, both of you having 2 shops, David can't be at both shops and this office manager can't be at both shops. So they have to rely on people to do things the right way.
We delegate and automate is what I call it.
Okay. Expound
Well,
on
tell
it.
us more about that, because your wife could be at one shop and you could be at the other shop potentially. Tell us more about that setup.
We want both shops to run without us. We have a general manager and manager of both stores. Between them, they pretty much got it covered. If there is a problem, they know they can contact me and I can help. Usually they do a better job when I'm going out of town than they did before I'm here.
And so, Kevin, you feel that way about Fox River, but not
So,
currently.
well,
There's a hiccup with Precision.
I think that it's important to surround yourself with people that you can trust. I have managers at both locations that I trust to know the way that we operate. The culture is very important for us, and we built both of our shops around that culture. Even at Precision Motorworks, when we're short-staffed, they just know when stuff needs to get done, and they know when stuff can be put off. I have an office manager, you said, Paul, that I delegate her. She runs the show. She does payroll. She pays all the bills. She does, she has access to our business accounts. I trust her, and I trust the people that work for me to do what they know is right. It takes a long time. I'm sure both of you guys, second, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while to find the right people. And sometimes you go through a lot of people to find the right people, but it makes it way easier when you have the right people.
Yeah, but the phrase, having people that can do what's right, I guarantee both of you have experienced this. And Brad, you probably have. I think everybody has at some point. I've been away and I've come back. How'd everything go? Oh, this happened and that happens. How'd you handle it? And they tell you, and you're like, okay, you let them have the control. You got to take what they do. And it's hard. You make the face because you're like, oh, I would not have done it that way. How did that work? That's a big part of it, though, letting go of that trust. If they understand how you think, your goals, the company's goals, the vision, as long as they're keeping you on that with the decisions they're making, sometimes you got to just suck it up and let them make some decisions and choices on their own.
Yeah.
There's
All
been
right,
a number
so
of times.
two thoughts there. I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
There's been a number of times where I've come back from something and they've made a decision that wasn't necessarily the way that I would have done it. I coach them on the way that maybe I would have done it a little bit differently. Sometimes full-blown forest fire when you get back. And sometimes it's just smoldering embers of something that they did what they felt was best. But I think it's important, at least for me, when there is a situation when I am available, I let them handle that situation. I don't take it from them. I'll have conversations with them about how do you think we should handle this? And then I let them come up with the best scenario. And if it's not in line with what I would do, I coach them through it. But I don't take the hard thing away from them. I think it helps build their confidence, and it builds my trust in that when I am not here, they're going to make a decision that, while it may not be the exact way, they've seen me do it or had conversations with me enough to know the way that we would want it done, that I trust that they're going to do it that.
All right. Bunch of questions there for both of you. David, please jump in. Developing that trust over time, balancing that with your experiences, possibly including those that were wrong. You learned from it. Kevin, you were talking about coaching them to the best way of handling something, but how often do you just let them make the wrong choice? And then how do we make sure that they are learning from that wrong choice as we have, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I don't want them to make the wrong choice. I want them, when they have a situation, they know that they can reach out to me. My manager at Precision is very good at that. Both of my managers are first-time managers also. When there's a situation, he will reach out to me, explain the situation, and then I will ask him, so what do you think we should do? How would you handle this? This was your business. How would you? I'll let him come up with the solution. If it's in the same direction that I would, I'll affirm it and go ahead and handle the situation that way. I think that's the right way to handle it. Communication is the biggest key, is being able to be accessible to your guys, not being on par with your guys. We're all just guys doing a job, trying to support our families. I rely on you to do it. So communication is, for me, the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always different ways to do this. There's never a just do it this way. Here's how to do it. It's a matter of trying to find your balance and whatnot. David, you said about automation and delegation. Are you delegating similarly to how Kevin is coaching and directing traffic?
Oh, yeah. It's very similar. I've come back before and there's been a situation and I was like, what'd you do? And they tell me, I'm like, oh no. And it turned out. It turned out awesome. They took a different path, but in the long run, it was still good. I learned something from that too. So everybody learned.
I like that. So how did you build trust with those whom you've delegated things to?
That's tough because I built this from scratch and it's like my baby. You don't just trust your kid with anybody, but somewhere along the way, you got to let them grow up. So we have SOPs, you know, how things should be handled, and we trust them to do it.
I get that.
Yeah,
And I like
everybody
the kid
knows
analogy.
what the end result's supposed to be. It's been said by scholars that they know what the goal is. I've had people say, what are we trying to get out of this? No, but we want this to happen. I'm like, all right, how do you get there? Get there. I know there's not a good way to say this, but I'm the smartest person I've ever met. And the way I do everything is probably the best way to do everything. So when somebody wants to do a little different, I struggle. So it's been a challenge for me to learn how to get an agreement on where we're trying to go. And then be like, all right, just get us there. Come find me if you got a question. And then, yeah, you're just like, oh man, I can't believe you take 18 steps and we could have done this in 3, but they're learning, right? They don't think about things the way we think about things. I don't make decisions today the way I made it when I was a technician. I don't make decisions today the way I made them when I was a service advisor. You've got to put the experiences in your pocket to be able to pull them back out and make future decisions, right? You got to build that wealth of knowledge. I laugh about it because I know that the previous owner, he was watching me make some of my decisions. He would be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? That's how all of us are by nature, though. My struggle is I'm not a touchy-feely type of a person. I'm very analytical. I say I'm the undiagnosed ADD child of the 70s. We didn't talk about that back. So I'm very black and white, very ABC. And like my service manager, does a great job. He's not emotional, but there's a lot of steps that he's going to take because that I wouldn't even consider because I don't think that way. My office manager is the same way. This ties into all this. My one-on-ones with the employees, I always avoided doing one-on-ones with these guys. It's touchy-feely. I don't like it. Emotions make me uncomfortable in a lot of cases. That's the easiest way to say it. But one day I was like, well, I could have them do it. And they could just reach back to me. They're the direct chain up through the org chart anyway from the technician. I'm doing them. I'm skipping people in the structure I'm trying to create. Keeps it with the thing, but it puts the people with the skill set doing the job. I don't have the skill set for one-on-one. I have a skill set for crunching this number, figuring out the plan to do this. How are we going to do that? Marketing this. But if it's emotional, let's put that task with the people that can do it. That's part of the overall building and delegating and figuring out how you're going to do things.
I think that's a very important, what you said is allowing people to be who they are. I am not like you, Paul. I am a touchy-feely person. We hug it out all the time here. I have guys that are like you, that are more analytical and more this is the way to do it. You got to figure out how to get what you need from all the people that you're working at. This is not a box. Not everybody operates in the box. So that was very well said. I agree with you 100%.
Just like I knew I struggled by trying to do something I'm not. Why would I make somebody else struggle?
Yeah.
Let's just shuffle it around. Let's switch it around. You're not going to give a guy that's really good at transmission rebuilding, differential rebuilding, electrical draws and shorts in an electrical system typically. Yeah, we put people with their skill sets all the time from a production standpoint with the cars and the work that's coming in, but I think we forget to do that sometimes with people in the soft skills within the industry, I think. Is the best way to say it. So David's got a unique situation. He's got the general manager that probably deals with most of that.
He helps out a lot.
Is that because you wanted it that way or does it luckily happen?
I wanted it that way. I wanted to have more time. So that's why we're still looking. We would really like to add 2 more shops. We're looking to continue building, and we want him on board early with us to understand how things are going to go.
And the general manager, is that per location or one general manager for both locations?
Both locations, and we have a manager at each location.
So you could
Got it.
potentially end up with a district manager and then another person above. I mean, you start adding extra shops, just double up a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Lot.
All
You
right.
got the
And in
formula
that
to-
process, you're going to make sure that you aren't going to be out of balance and still doing the things that you want to be doing.
That's me.
Yeah, yes. Dave.
We definitely add more management as we grow. Because this has been a real struggle for me. I tend to want to revert back to working in the business instead of on the business. And I keep having to correct myself on that. It's a chore because I love working on cars. What I've always done.
So who's the one that's actually letting you know that you're out of balance? Or is it you? How do you make sure, what guardrails do you have to make sure that, hey, I'm working in instead of on? How do you get yourself to be aware? Sometimes you're just doing and you're not really aware of what you're doing, right? You're just going through the motions or working too fast.
I would like to say I am keeping myself in check, but I think my wife is having a little bit of a
There you
in
go.
that also. She likes to let me know how things are going.
Okay. And Paul, do you have somebody at the shop that says, Paul, you're too deep into it? Like, you got to. Okay. How are you making sure that you don't get out of balance?
I think of my dad a lot. The concept of I'll do it when I retire and sticks with you. So I self-regulate that. I think sometimes I get a little bit too much on the life side of the work-life balance.
Does it help to have the wall art behind you? Why don't you
Yeah.
tell everybody about the wall art behind you?
Yeah. I'll go out and actually do some work instead of the fun and the goofing off. I like to scuba dive, so can't do that real. You can do it in Ohio a little bit when the weather's warmer, but I want to go on trips. I want to go places. I want to do things. I've never been a giant car guy. I was a mediocre, I think I'm a okay owner, but I was a really good service advisor. Where I struggle in the building, I just want to be someone else build the estimate and do all this stuff. Let me call and talk. I want to explain why they need what they need. I love talking to people on that track. All the rest of it, someone else can do it. I'm okay with that. But yeah, I struggle. If I had anything to struggle with, it's not doing enough work.
Okay.
I have my office manager, and she's wrangling me back in. She'll be like, "Hey, I made a list. We need to get this done. I got this, but I need you to, you got to do the other." Like, it always happens. I end up working through the list and doing things. I'm like, I just got tricked into working. When you think about it, I just take it, and I'm like, it is again. But I can't stress enough to everybody out there, the concept of I'll do it when I retire is the worst thing you could ever say to yourself. And there's 1,000 examples over and over. I just happened in my life, and I'm never going to forget it.
How many years ago was it that you were working too much in the shop trying to get things converted?
That's all 2013 in that stretch.
All right. And during that period, was there a moment where burnout, was there a moment where you were so exhausted, you weren't sure which way was up?
No, I wouldn't say I was exhausted. There was frustrations. I couldn't get things figured out, but just keep pushing. I actually pushed more and more when things got more difficult because the spouse at the time was doing the same thing. And I didn't have that check and balance in my personal life. My kids were like 5 and 6. They couldn't give you the check. The wife at the time couldn't give me the check because she was doing the same thing. Employees, a lot of the employees we have now, we had then, but none of them would feel comfortable saying something to me about it.
Okay.
Because that wasn't the culture in the business prior. And now we talk about that kind of stuff a lot, but it wasn't talked about before. Yeah,
Major change in the shop.
But yes, it took me time as the owner to learn how to trust people. I had to look at everybody from a different angle and what can they do? What can't they do? Maybe I need to change this person because I don't feel I can trust what they're going to do. And you develop relationships in a different way. And you learn everybody's strengths and you start to divvy out a little bit of, and then you just keep moving.
Kevin, you were with Firestone for about 10 years, and you've told me in the past about the number of hours that you've worked while there. Did it feel like burnout, or were there points during those years where you felt exhausted? Was that the catalyst that said, I'm doing it differently?
Yes. I can recall many times pulling up to the store that I was managing for Firestone early in the morning, like 6 o'clock, and lying down on the couch to catch more. When I bought Fox River Tire, I was a good manager. I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed informing my customer to make an informed decision on their car. I was never a tech. I'm a people person. When I bought Fox River Tire, I brought that skill and I worked as the manager of my business. And we were, thank God for my wife, because my wife was the owner of the business for a long time. This was not her.
How was she the owner?
She made all the decisions. I had the key. I would open the store. I was the manager. I did the selling, the managing of employees, and she did all the business stuff to her detriment. That was not her background. This was not something she wanted to do. She supported me in it, and I saw the burnout happen for her. And she will just at one point just said, I'm not doing this anymore. This was never what I wanted to do. I feel like I have all the responsibility, and she wasn't wrong. I let her have all of the hard responsibility. I just did what I was good at. I just transferred it from Firestone over to here.
Yeah.
So it's only been recently that I'm working on my business now. I've found those people that I can trust to do it. Paul, I know exactly what you mean by it. My way was the best way. I had to learn to humble. I really had to learn to humble myself and know that my way is not the only way that it can be done. To trust the people that I've hired to do the job I would ask them to do in a way that gets the job done, but it does not have to be the way I would do.
Just because it's the best way doesn't mean it's the only way. That's a hard lesson to learn.
I need to jump in. I just had a memory from my elementary school days. Our gym teacher, his last name was Shalloway. And he would regularly say, there's the right way, there's the wrong way, and there's the shallow way, and we're doing it the shallow way. So anyway, you said that, but that's what jumped into my head. I'm sorry.
But that's a hard lesson to learn because you feel like everything's on your shoulders. So if it's all buck stops here and all the rest of it, I want things done the way I want them done. But man, that's a horrible way to live and to manage. It takes time to learn that. But what you do, it's really a big change for everybody and everything. I think everybody can probably agree with that.
Absolutely.
It's tough to
But it's great to do it. It's great to do it.
Now, do you guys have any, I guess I'm of the age and I was taught that you work and you just keep going and you don't really pay attention to the emotional stuff. You just go. And that was just how I was raised. Over the years, I've learned that something is out of balance. For example, if I have a messy desk, I don't like a messy desk. If it's neat, I have things under control. If it's messy, it's almost like a wake-up call that says, wait, something else is a mess, not just your desk, and you need to go and fix that. The other thing for me is, again, this is personal and strange, but when I'm stressed, I don't notice it, but I'll have ridiculous number of crazy nightmares throughout every single night. And then I realize, oh, something is out of whack. I need to go figure out what it is and then go tend to it. Do you have any of those types of notice things in your own life that you talked about the accountability partners and your teammates as guardrails potentially, but what about just personally? Is there anything that kind of gives you an indication that something's amok?
Yes. For me, I start feeling it in my body, muscles tensing, headaches, and just overall anxiety. When I get to that point, I have things that I do to burn that off. I've ridden skateboards I'm a Southern California guy. I've been born and raised in Southern California in the 70s, 80s when that culture was very big. So I've been doing that for a long time. I'll come home and my wife can see on my face, you need to go to the skate park. You need to go. For me, that's the thing I do to help alleviate that tension and that stress. My wife is very good at reading that on my face.
Just handing you the skateboard and a cup of coffee or energy drink, a Monster energy drink, a skateboard. How often do you end up going to the park?
I try to get out every couple of weeks. As I get older, falls become much more painful. One thing my wife always told me was, I'll support what you do, but you got to be able to get up and go to work the next day. There have been many days where I've been really broken, 3 times with broken ribs, in pain, but you got to pay to play sometimes.
I'm picturing you in 5 years in a bite suit for a dog so it doesn't hurt when you fall down at all. Like, you're just
Yeah.
a dog training bike suit, right? You're just covered. But that's really interesting. Do you have any video or pictures of you in the park?
I absolutely have video and pictures.
All right. So here's it. I wouldn't mind you sharing those at another time. I don't know if you'll be able to share them right
Absolutely.
here.
I'll send some to you.
That'd be great. Check with your marketing team. When it comes to social media marketing for business, it's social, not business, right? So
Right.
a lot of times as shop owners, you're regularly talking about what the shop does for their cars and for their customers' cars. Every now and then you got to let your hair down and show who you are. Some of that content might be good for your business social media marketing to speak to who you and the other team members are at the shop.
Yeah.
So don't just let it be featuring you. What are all the other team members doing to help with their burnout, anxiety, or stress points? I'm not looking for pictures of people smoking. I'm looking for pictures of doing activities that actually allow you to health-based activities.
It's the way it is physically.
What do you know about it, Paul? I see some skateboard. Is it 1 or 2 skateboards?
No, that's years and years ago.
So
No,
they're
I do
hanging
the-
on your wall for a reason. They're not on the ground anymore.
Yeah, I do scuba diving. I'm a scuba instructor, so I find time to do classes. And when you ask how I do things, I notice that I got something going on. When I'm like, man, I got to finish this project. When I get too many things that are a half or 2/3 or 3/4 of the way done, I know something's up. And if I'm not able to lock myself all the way through on things because my brain's going in 1,000 directions.
Okay.
And sometimes then you just gotta dig down and do it. But yeah, if I can go diving, give me an hour underwater with nobody to talk to, nothing, you can't hear anything, you can't smell anything. You're locked in with what you can see and feel, and it's calming. For me, it's calming.
Okay.
So I like doing
All
that.
right.
That's a big one for me.
I have not done that, but I can appreciate the quiet. I like sitting in the middle of a snowstorm. Like, I'm looking at the scenery, everything just covered in white, and it's quiet.
It's quiet.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's calming. I can feel my heart pressure actually drop. What about you, David?
I know a really nice quiet place on the beach, and I can drive out there and back up to the ocean and sit on the tailgate for a couple hours.
All right. So did the location choose you for your shop, or is it the other way around? Did you plant your shop right there because of what you just said?
No, this is where I was raised. I was lucky enough to land here. But if it's not that, we have Sea-Doos. We'll go out and just take a nice cruise on the water.
And that does it for you.
That's calming.
And how do you know when that is needed?
My wife shows me I have to call. She can sense it before I do. But it is anxiety and stress, and you know what's coming. You got to get it off. One thing I like to keep telling myself is you work to live, you don't live to work.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
easy to preach this, but it's a lot harder to live it.
I've heard it phrased as your business shouldn't be your identity, but your identity should be reflected in your business.
That's good. I like that.
There's a lot of guys out there. There's Frank's Muffler and Brake and Sammy's this, and somebody else at the shop, and they put their name on the thing, and they're the service person, and they're the technician, and they're the everything, and they're there 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I said earlier, this industry's got a lot of ego. Once you can step back from that a little bit, suddenly you can do a lot of great things. But you got to learn that you're never going to step away and get work-life balances. Frank's Muffler and Brake. If Frank's doing everything, he's never going to have the chance to get any kind of work-life balance because there's nobody else to do anything.
Yeah.
You force yourself to do everything because you don't trust, or you don't believe in other people. Maybe you're greedy and don't want to spend the money on another employee, but you have to be able to let go.
David, maybe you could talk about this. I can almost hear somebody listening to this podcast today and thinking that is easy for you to say because you have established shops.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I'm just starting out. I'm only 2 or 3 years into my shop. It's easy for you to say have work-life balance now that you've got a decade or 32, 34 years under your belt. Can we reflect back to when you were trying to build it up maybe Dave, since you built it from scratch, you could speak more to this. Did you honestly have work-life balance then?
I can't honestly say I have work-life balance now, but I work at it. It's constantly changing. Early on, it was just me and my wife. Like I say, what Tim,
You were the mechanic. You were doing the work.
and we were small enough. If we wanted to go on a trip or my son had a game or anything like that, we just closed the shop and our customers knew it. But as we've grown, it's been a lot harder to do. Well, we can't do that. So that's why we've had to adapt. And we constantly adapt because it's always a constant change. No, I'm not saying I've mastered this by any means.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
the younger individual, from the standpoint of either age or shop ownership, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot. You're not going to have work-life balance for a while until you get things kind of up and running and going. But in that time where you don't have it, you need to know that it exists. In all your planning and structure building, you need to have that as one of your main components, just as important as anything else. Your decisions that you make day to day in the business for the growth of the business are factoring that in. So do I do this? Do I do that? Okay, if I want this, I need to go this direction. You may not have it right off. It's just someone that just graduated from college and gets married, not going to buy a 5-bedroom house with a swimming pool.
Oh,
It's not
yeah.
how it works. You get to build to that. People my age, I think we're all probably the close to the same age, at least in the same generation. But we're willing to share the advice and say, hey, don't make our mistakes. Start working now. Start figuring it out now on how to get to this point. We'll give you some advice here. You can do this. You can try this. And you follow the 20 steps, you'll get there. But you always have to be thinking about it. How do I get to the place where I've got work-life balance? So don't try and throw it in somewhere down at the end. It's got to be planned for. It has to be planned for. You have to arrange your entire business in such a way to give it to you.
And speaking of arranging your business, Dave, you also talked about automation and delegation, right? How can we use software systems or some of the modern day tools to make things more efficient so that we're spending less time? Like I'm imagining somebody writing down the order for every single person, right? Writing up the tickets and explaining what was done in every single thing and taking the time to actually handwrite that as opposed to having the computer spit it out. I want specific examples of how shop management software systems are helping you, how your phone systems are helping you, and how make a list of some of the different tools that you guys are using to make sure that you are running more efficiently and actually spending less time having to do certain things. Who wants to go first?
So for Foxford Retire and Precision Motorworks, our operating system is TechMetric. It's all integrated into a digital video inspections.
Sure.
We do it's texting. It's all encompassed. It even to some extent is our CRM. We use AutoOps, Appointment Center. I think surrounding ourselves with the right people and the right technology allows me to have that work-life balance.
Okay, good.
I want to say a
would
key
say
point
for
of
us,
ours.
We're a Napa Auto Care Center, so I use Napa Tracks for my point of sale, Auto Vitals for digital inspections, ties in, allows us to do the texting. We have text to pay option. So you get those different things in there in the digital inspections. If someone's not doing them, they need to start. We have another feature called Maintenance Hunter that you click the button and it'll go back through anything anybody's ever recommending Carfax, and it tells you the Carfax reports what work someone may have had done at another shop. You get history on vehicle. All these little things make the job for the service advisor way easier and build an estimate and talking to them. You get more knowledge. It's quicker. It's more efficient, theoretically less stressful. The phone calls are a lot less because of the texting apps. We probably have more than half of our customers schedule online. Probably at least half. Again, half of them, they do key drop. Having all these things available to people makes it a lot easier. You don't have the constant barrage of phone calls, the constant people coming in. You're still communicating with them. You're still doing everything that needs to be done. It just spreads it all out a little. You're not having to go 18 different ways to build the estimate. When's the last time we did this brake service on there? Everything's kind of at your fingertips if you get all the little add-ons and things in front of you. If that makes sense to you. It's a lot less stressful. And when I started the service advisor, we had to look everything up, and we're doing the math by hand on the hours and looking up. It was hilarious when I think back on how we did. I don't know how we did anything done compared to now. It's just like done. This parts are ordered, click there. The technology, if you're using it, and they're all different, but they're all very similar in the way they operate. I think we can agree. You just got to use it. You got to learn it. What's the features? I think they all have features that nobody uses because they're not aware that they exist. Yeah.
To a point, just owning the software doesn't really help. David, what are your thoughts?
I'm like Paul. We have tracks. We're not the gold, and we have auto vitals, and we're actually on the tracks. The advisory board for NAPA. So there is a lot of things in tracks that people don't realize it's there. So we all have the same electronic or technology. One thing that has been mentioned, I feel strong about is SOPs. Everybody's got to know what their job is, how to do it, and what's expected of them. So you don't have people doing the same job or not know what their job is.
Okay.
No, there's a lot of truth in that. We have not as many as I should, but quite a few put together.
And they're always
it's just, how do you schedule an appointment? Feature for that.
Phone.
Yeah, how do you answer the phone? How do you schedule this appointment? How do you schedule an online appointment in the computer? How do you do this? How do you do that? My goal behind doing it was, one day I don't want to work here anymore. And I want to be able to give somebody a 3-ring binder and say, about this thick, and be like, here's how we did everything to get to this point. If you just do this, you'll succeed.
Paul, I don't want to burst your bubble. I'm hoping that I can help you revise that vision. It's no longer a 3-ring binder. It's a flash drive with videos.
Sure.
Because nobody wants to read. They want to listen. They want to hear what you have to say.
What's great is if you don't meddle with anything and do it just like this, you think to yourself, somebody would have told me that. I'd be like, whatever, with your binders. You see, but do it my way. But the procedures are super important to have success and be repeatable and to be away. They got to know how to do what happens. The gutter falls off the building. What's the plan? You got a procedure on how you deal with maintenance. What happens if the lift breaks? What do we do with the old tires? And everybody can stand there and be like, what happens with the old tires? Who do we call? Nobody knows who to call for recycled tire pickup. You're going to be handcuffed to the place. Make it right.
You didn't consider starting a tire swing business? We'll hang it on your tree.
Playground mulch, I guess. They grind them up, use them.
Yeah.
Fees are really big, and we don't talk about in this industry enough either.
All right. This question I personally don't like the question, but I know that it seems to be a popular question. What do you tell your 22-year-old self about work-life balance? What do you go back and tell yourself? Whenever I think of that question, I have to be careful. I like the course I ended up on. And so I want to make sure that it's a better course and not a different course. So if you could go back and give yourself some advice, just 2 decades, let's not go back to 22. Let's just say 2 decades. Here is the work-life balance tip of the day from you to yourself. What do you got?
I think for me, it would be live in the moment, because that's all that you're guaranteed is what you got right now. You can do all the planning, but you're not guaranteed anything except what you got right now. And you can't take anything back. Once that time's gone, gone.
Any ideas, David?
Family.
Pay attention to family.
Yes. I would high up the list and what I was back then.
Earlier today, we talked about the do-over of the second child type approach. I've multiple times said to my wife, we only have one child. We hear that people do it differently with the second child, so let's just do what they did with our first child. That's been a regular conversation at our house even today. I'll say things like, we only have 7 years to make a man of this one. We got to get moving on it. And I get pushed back from my wife on that. But anyway, family is quintessential. I echo that. What about you, Paul? What do you got?
That's a hard question, to be honest. You know why you don't like it. If that's a real force you get really think and thoughts you might not want to think.
Yeah.
I try, and I say this jokingly, it's not my own creation, but a long time ago I heard the phrase, you only live twice and you don't know what turn you're on. I think about that a lot. I think about my dad. When I go back 20 years, it'd be like, create a plan, work a plan, and trust the plan. Just figure out what you want to do and just do it. But you have to have a passion. and figure that out too. I would tell myself, figure out what your passion is. And it's most likely not work. Very rarely do people work within their passion. Figure out what your passion is and figure out, put time into it. Take care of your responsibilities, but take care of yourself also. All those things run through my mind when you ask that question. I'll admit.
No, it's a fine answer. It's not going to be printed on a bumper sticker anytime soon. Or it'd be
Yeah,
very
you have to get that one out there.
I think it's fair. And I think make sure you're taking care of yourself, but also making sure that you're taking care of the business. It's reasonable to acknowledge that there are going to be times when the business requires more of you and you will be temporarily out of balance. But part of make a plan, trust a plan, right, is knowing how to get that balance back or feed the family, so to speak, when it gets crazy. And knowing when to go to the skate park or the beach, and knowing when to go scuba diving is part of the equation. You don't want to be on the full other end of that burnout, because that can just be a downward spiral that would be something crazy. Interesting. I think we hit this a little bit on the work-life balance side, whether it's delegating the team members. We spent a lot of time on that, talking about how technology actually smooths the road. Is there a technology piece that we didn't talk about that smooths the road? Dave, you mentioned answering phones, but do phone systems actually help us be more efficient?
Nobody answers the phone anymore.
Yeah, I would say texting is probably more efficient, or emails, like, cause Auto Vitals, we can email the video, the pictures, and description, all that. I would say that's more efficient.
People love it. People
And
love
so
it.
are you not trying to get more phone calls into the shop? You're just trying to get more contacts into the shop. You actually don't want them to be phone calls per se.
Well,
Maybe that's
we
not the
don't
way to
mind
say
phone
it.
calls. I just think the other is more efficient after you get the phone call.
Yeah.
It's
That's really
lazy to
interesting.
communicate. They always say the picture's worth 1,000 words and the video's worth must be 10 million.
Easy.
Huh. That's something I'll add to this whole concept, if you don't mind. It's to the young shop owner, to the older shop owner, or the new shop owner. Another way for work-life balance, you got to figure out what you know and you don't know, what you want to do and you don't want to do. And the best way to do is find either it's a coaching group, business, get yourself connected to other shop owners, share ideas, learn from them. Like I said, learn, you're going to meet people, and then you'll be like, oh, I really like the way they do that. And then you'll be like, another guy, you may not do it that way. You learn a lot, you bounce things off. And if you're in a good one, people become friends. We're not all enemies. You don't have to put the guy down the street out of business. There's a lot of cars, but you become friendly with people. And sometimes they may notice you need to take a little bit of a break, or you might need to put a little bit more work in. They're considered a peer. They know what things to look for. They're business owners. Everybody's got the same struggles and problems for the most part. You can hook up with some. I know the Napa Auto Care, we're a Gold Center also. They have business development groups. There's different coaching companies out there that you can get into different groups. That's a really handy tool for a shop owner to learn some strategies and techniques that aren't necessarily how to make your business better, but how to make your life better.
Timing of that is fun, because last month's panel podcast was, do I need a coach? And in some regards, I was expecting some shop owners to say no, but on our panel, they all said yes. And not all three of them were actually actively involved in a coaching group. That was also interesting, but it was still a recommended piece of the puzzle. And there are different levels of it. And you're touching on the peer group piece of it. And I like that from an accountability as an extra guardrail or an extra mirror on helping you determine whether or not you're out of balance on work life. Because as we just talked about, we're so busy getting the next thing done on our to-do list that we sometimes aren't aware when we're out of balance. So having a spouse, teammate at the shop, or even better, a peer in the industry who also can recognize those moments for you.
And the industry is a really big part of it, because you can talk to your neighbor who's construction management or an accountant about struggles with work and work-life balance. They don't really know. Other shop owners, it just makes it a lot easier when you have a lot of the same shared experiences.
You know, I agree. A coach is the number one thing I would ever recommend to anybody opening a shop. It's a life changer. We were 25 years into the business before we got a coach. And that was Dumbest thing I ever did was wait.
Interesting. Coaches, they're not inexpensive. You're saying you would rearrange the budget to try to figure out how to, what would have you had to sacrifice to have hired one earlier? When it was just you and your wife, should have you hired a coach?
Yes. We should have hired a coach day one. Well, I would say there's no expense to a coach because they're going to earn you a lot more than they'll ever cost.
Yeah, but you're going to have to invest up front, right? For how many months before you can actually show a return?
I would say the coach we had, John Waffler, started the first week, just small changes, paid his fee easily.
And you're investing in your business and yourself. So it's kind of hard to put the value or to say that.
You guys want to give a shout out to your coaches? Or why don't you just tell us about them?
We're with Institute. We have Jennifer Hurlock is our coach.
I'm with ATI, Jeff Thurman, wonderful guy. He and I don't really think the same way on a lot of things, so it challenges me. That's one of the big things about the coach. They're honest with you. They'll tell you exactly what you need to hear. If you got someone who doesn't think the same way you do, that's willing to tell you what you need to hear, you can change yourself in a lot of things if you're open to it.
Good. Kevin?
I have been in coaching programs before. I'm not in one right now. If you can get a good coach when you start out, you don't know what you don't know. A good coach will help you understand the big picture and the things you need to focus on. I think coaching is of vital importance.
It's going to help you get to that next plateau, whatever the next plateau for you is.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. You're going to get there faster as a result of having that accountability partner, that coach, that guidance. And as we talked about, maybe the coach can actually help you with that work-life balance piece as well and help you point out the inefficiencies so that you have more time to do the things that you are good at and delegate what you're not good at. That's the summation of what we've been talking about.
Most every coaching group or coach that I've ever heard of, one of their big goals is to get you to not have to work anymore, to only not have to actually go in. There's a lot of steps involved in getting a good running business with good employees and good margins. But the end goal is that you just call once a month and be like, hey.
Why it wasn't direct deposit, I'm not sure. Let's actually work on that inefficiency. No more paper checks. Let's just do it. All right. So are there any closing thoughts? Any other ideas that we want to share? David, you got any other thoughts on this?
I would suggest, instead of calling it work-life balance, work-life harmony.
Nice.
Alison Bezos, not for me.
Say that again?
Alison Bezos, not for me.
Work-life harmony. Got it. Any closing thoughts on the topic?
I've said it before. When you prioritize work over life, you don't get those moments back. So just make sure, know what you're doing and know what you stand to miss out on.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
Don't wait. Just don't wait. Don't wait to do the thing that you want to do. Don't wait. That's the biggest thing I've ever learned in life. Don't wait to take the trip. Don't wait to make a decision. You just things as they come up, get them taken care of and keep going. If you wait for, ends up not being as good.
Right. We talked about coaching on the last panel. We're talking about it again, even in this work-life harmony setup and conversation. It continues to pop up. Just in case people who are listening aren't sure, I'm not a coach. All right. We talk about all these different things that are pressing for auto repair shop owners, but I'm actually one of two founders of AA Shop Marketing, a digital marketing company for auto repair shops. And so what we have found is I can bring in more calls, more text messages, more appointments. But if you don't have the work-life balance in place, if you don't have the coaching system, the right software and systems in place, what good is that? And so we love to actually help shops win. And that's why we have these types of conversations on a regular basis on the podcast. It's because we're just trying to make sure that you are the well-rounded shop owner so that when a company like ours comes in and brings in more opportunities for you, you're able to handle them appropriately. I really appreciate each one of you and your time on today's podcast. I want to ask one more question of each of you before we go. What other topics should I potentially cover in the near future? What are the topics that are pressing for auto repair shops that maybe you would like to hear more of other repair shop owners talk about? What's on your mind?
Maybe growing technicians.
Growing technicians, just growing them.
Right.
Okay.
Internal development.
I'm sorry, Paul?
I was said the internal development with the growing technician. The one I hear over and over, it bothers me, is you got to charge what you're worth. You got to charge properly. So many people are afraid to charge for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Be it a diagnostic or a proper labor rate. There's so much technology in the industry. There's so many people not in the industry that could be in the industry. You got to pay things well. You got to pay your technicians well. You got to pay for these things. You got to charge for it. It's for whatever reason, everybody's afraid of it. Texas Roadhouse isn't afraid to charge what they charge for a steak, and the plumber's not afraid to charge what he charges, and the guy at the furniture store isn't afraid to charge what he's charging. But in our industry, everybody's the great big boogity, you know.
I wouldn't mind if the Texas Roadhouse was a little afraid to charge a little. That would be fine. I'd be okay with that. Kevin, how about you? What topic would you like to see discussed?
You know, I think Paul's topic is a topic that the industry needs to grasp. It is okay to charge what you're worth. I know there's a lot of guys doing it out there, but when you got guys that you have invested in that do good work, that commands $1. Just having some uniformity in the industry, I think that would be a good topic.
And I think also a mistake that's made is that some people don't charge adequately for diagnostic and don't charge adequately for the knowledge base, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at a car, or your lead tech looks at a car and just knows what the problem is. You can't charge for that 1 minute. You also have to charge for the knowledge that came with that 1 minute, right? It's beyond just the time. It's the knowledge base.
Yeah.
There's value.
The investment we made in that.
We're the only industry that I know of that just diagnostic time or testing and inspection time, whatever you want to call it, or doesn't charge for it. It's a generations and decades problem. As cars get more and more complex, it's more than ever important to be paying for that testing and evaluation time, but people, they don't have to because they never had to pay for it before, or no other shops ever charged me that.
And no, perception is part of the problem there. And it's a marketing problem, in my opinion, right? I was actually considering this, just going through the grocery store. Why is it okay to pay? Maybe $2 is cheap for apple juice, but $2 is expensive for soda. Each industry and each product line has decades of perceptions attached to it. I'll pay $4 for a large container of ice cream because that's what it's come to. I'm upset about it because it used to be $2.50. I've accepted it. It's because all of them are doing it. If one was still charging $2, you would pull the others down with you. That's part of the marketing dynamic. Part of what we have to do is encourage everyone in this industry so it starts to become the norm. And we're communicating that to our customers. This is the correct way to do it. This is the correct way to be. Those that aren't doing it are actually not just doing themselves in service, but maybe it's because they don't have the knowledge base. Or maybe they do, but they're not charging for it. Let's just say they don't have the knowledge base that we have, and that's why they're not charging for it. Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah. Or the other popular one is, if I charge you $100 to evaluate it and $400 to fix it. But that
was a topic I once thought about talking about, was how much, actually we did touch about it a little bit now that I think about it. There was a podcast where we talked about how transparent we are with the tickets. Some people have one line, water pump, $500, and they don't bother to be as transparent as you just said, Paul, by breaking it down. They get less pushback because it's a simpler invoice. If you find out that you're charging $40 for windshield wiper fluid, you're like, what? Because I know I can get it for $2 at the dollar store.
All the computers in them, the wiring in them, the testing, evaluation, the equipment required to do that testing, evaluation is going to be more complex and more expensive.
Yeah.
And we've got to be collecting the money to be able to do it. They should have 2 to 3 weeks vacation a year plus time off sick. They should have health insurance. They should have this. They should have that. Make your employees' lives better. You can't do that unless you pay them in a lot of senses.
But my question to you, Beth, how, by having less detail on your tickets, are you helping yourself out? You mentioned before about it's $500 whether the other guy does it or whether we do it. We just break it down, and you described it as being transparent. And I'm just asking, is it easier just to have that one line and not even bother to explain it?
It's going to be, if cultural is not the word, maybe more where you live or what people expect. I can flip it over now because everybody expects us to have detail. I'm not getting crazy detail off things, but my labor who replaced the water pump and the water pump. I don't put how many hours that I billed you for. It's just a dollar figure. Get the part number for the water pump on there because it's not relevant. I may have 2 antifreeze because I use 2 quarts or whatever, but it's the transparency to me is the issue is more not so much a job that you're doing. It's that testing and evaluation versus the repair. That, I've never had to pay to have anything looked at before. You paid for it. They just lumped it in with the repair. I mean, you try and explain it the other way. That shop gambled that you were going to fix it. If you didn't fix it, they would have been out the money. They have enough people that they check things out for free that don't fix it. Other cars coming in, they got to pay their bills. So there's going to be things that they're probably told that are wrong that maybe aren't necessarily wrong because they got to make up the money somewhere. You might be that customer they got to make up the money on because other people kept saying no. It opens up the door to some shady business practices in a lot of cases.
I get that.
I also
All right.
am crunchy peanut butter.
All right. How about we wrap up? Thank you again for being here. I appreciate your time and I really appreciate hearing from you. And so everyone who's listening in, thanks for listening to the Garage Grit podcast. If you have any questions or thoughts that you kind of want to share your stories, there's the Garage Grit Facebook group. There's a private group for auto repair shop owners. So if you're not in, go request. I'll let you in and we can continue this conversation there. Thanks again to everybody. I appreciate your time and all the best. We'll be in touch. Thank you.